Alright, hello and welcome everyone once again to my corner. I, as always, am your DM. We have a special one coming today, unrelated to Earth 2. However, it is concerning a relatively important topic, I feel like. So I wanted to talk about it. I came across this video recently. Now, as a disclaimer, before I get into this video, I do not have a particular side, as it were, in pretty much anything. I am always of the opinion that what is best for me is known only by me. No one else has the ability to know what could be best for me because they are not me. As a result, I always do all of my research. I always ensure that I check multiple sources and multiple places for facts, including primarily sources that are opposed to my opinion. Because typically for humans, we bias our preferences for searches and whatnot towards things that only confirm our existing beliefs. So I try my best to look towards sides that are against my personal beliefs, because that gives me the best chance to learn and grow as a human being. Now, that being said, because those are differing opinions, I don't necessarily always agree with them. However, I do still take the time to acknowledge that they are different than mine, and just because I do not agree with them does not necessarily mean that they are in any way less correct or any way less valid. With that being said, this concerns some pretty insane ways that we think nowadays as human beings. And it has, well, let's get into it and you'll find out.
Jordan understood something that most people today don't. People need to get away from all the politics and division, whether it's with sports, comedy, music, or whatever. The majority of us just want a diversion to turn off all the noise. But when large companies start fighting the culture wars and ignoring the mission, which is business, people start looking for alternatives. It's that simple.
Now, you can see where we're going. I am an extremely open-minded individual. I make sure to hear all sides of the arguments as best as I can, and I try to let all sides speak their piece without interruption. Now, I'm going to say this outright. I agree wholeheartedly with everything in this video. I do not disagree with what this man is about to say. I'm just going to let you know that now. I have seen this video already. I watched it on another YouTuber's channel who is doing a reaction to this video. And yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with all of this. Politics needs to stay out of things where politics does not belong.
And good leaders understand that. They know it's not worth sinking into the woke muck just to make a handful of people happy. No one's ever happy.
No, we're not. If you try to say that you can make everyone happy, you're more delusional about that than Shane Isaac is about his game being, or his product being revolutionary.
And no one ever respects people that cave. Today,
and you want proof of that? That no one ever respects people who cave? Look at anyone who has ever caved and look at how bad their everything tanked.
the streaming service Netflix took a stand, putting out a memo to its employees, 11,000 of them, saying they aren't going to take tiny little stands over every single piece of content they put out. They're not going to cave to the left, who complain about this comedian or this actor. They're just going to go about their business. And if you're not happy with it, well, maybe you should find yourself a new job.
Yes. And this applies for everything as far as a job is concerned, what entertainment you consume, whether that be movies, TV shows, comedy specials, video games. You have a choice. You can either consume that content and be spiteful and hateful that it exists, or you could just completely ignore it and just let it exist and continue about your day without ruining anyone else's.
Quote, not everyone will like or agree with everything on our service. While every title is different, we approach them based on the same set of principles. We program for a diversity of audiences and tastes, and we let viewers decide what's appropriate for them versus having Netflix censor specific artists or voices. If you'd find it hard to support our content, Netflix may not be the best place for you.
Now, this can also still be applied universally. One thing we need to understand is that places like Netflix, Blizzard, Activision, Ubisoft, all these places, Target, Home Depot, everywhere, they put out content relating to certain things when it is most profitable. If you don't believe me, here's an example. Gay Pride Month. All year round, for 11 months of the year, 99.99% of businesses, at least here in the US, do absolutely nothing to show their support, at least not publicly, for the LGBTQ plus community. Not a single thing. They might make some donations here or there, depending on the circumstances, but 99.9% of the time, they do absolutely nothing. However, during that 1 month, during Gay Pride Month, they have gay pride flags, they have gay pride merchandise, they have LGBTQ plus merchandise everywhere, all during that 1 month. Then once that month is gone, all of that merchandise gets pulled off of the store floors and forgotten. If you don't believe me, just do your own research and look into it. I promise you'll find the same things I did.
What an amazing idea. Letting the viewers decide. Thank you. It's about time companies started treating us like adults. This memo was a direct response to some whiny employees who just a few months ago were protesting and crying over the company airing a Dave Chappelle special. All because he made some jokes they didn't like.
And with comedy, people, you have to remember it's comedy. Comedy, the reason that comedy exists is controversy, is things that we wouldn't normally agree with or think about or anything like that. Now, I will fully admit that there are certain things that you flat out do not joke about. End of story. And if anyone tries to make a joke about them, I tear them apart. And I will do that no matter who it is. But comedy is all about the uncomfortable. It's about taking situations, taking moments, and making fun of them. Making it entertainment. That's what comedy is. It's not supposed to be bog standard and everyone accepts it, because that's not comedy. That isn't including everything that comedy does, because it's comedy.
Cancel people that are more powerful than me. We canceled J.K. Rowling. My God, J.K. Rowling wrote all the Harry Potter books by herself. She sold so many books, the Bible worries about her. And they canceled her because she said in an interview, and this is not exactly what she said, but effectually, she said gender was a fact. And then the trans community got mad as they started calling her a TERF. I didn't even know what that was. But I know
what that is.
Trans people make up words to win arguments.
Some of these Netflix employees were offended.
Now, I want to get this out there. If you are trans, gay, whatever, totally fine. You do you, boo. I've got no issue with you being there. You do you. You go about living your life. Honestly, straight people scare me. They really do. I don't necessarily like very many straight people, despite being straight myself. I find that people who are gay, trans, bi, that fall into the LGBTQ plus community, I find they are, generally speaking, a lot more open and accepting and a lot friendlier than some of the people that I know. We'll put it that way.
It's okay to laugh, but you're sparking hate conversation.
The problem is that as trans people, we have very limited rights, all right?
That's not true at all. I'm no lawyer, of course, but here in America, everyone has the same rights. It could honestly be argued that they're more protected than a straight person, vaguely speaking, mind you, because of anti-discrimination laws. However, those very same anti-discrimination laws apply to straight people as well. The anti-discrimination laws are put in place for a reason. Now, it's obviously very difficult to actually prove discrimination against an employer, at least in terms of like hiring and whatnot. However, pretty much entirely speaking, everyone is still beholden to the same laws. Now, there's obviously some catch-22s, like if you're extremely rich, but you don't have any fewer laws or any more restrictions than anyone else does. And as for the lady that was speaking before this individual, sparking conversation around hate is a good thing. We want to be able to talk about this and talk these people out of their hateful ways. We don't want to spark more hate. We don't want to encourage hate. Encouraging hate in any form is bad. However, encouraging talking about these subjects is good. It means that all sides of the story can be heard. Not just one party's, but all sides of the story can be heard. All the factual evidence can be put on the table. And when we deal with factual, impossible to disprove evidence, the ones that are the maddest are the ones that are wrong.
We have a whole piece of content on Netflix called Disclosure that is, for trans people, by trans people, that explains how comedy and content such as Dave Chappelle's is harmful.
You don't have a right in this country to not be offended. If you don't want to work for a company, find a new job. These people were trying to twist the boss's arms into getting their way. And they didn't care if the company ended up having a worse product or less revenue. All they cared about was forcing their lack of sense of humor on the rest of us.
I want to reiterate this. What we need to remember is that these are businesses. They are trying to make money. As much money as possible. They do not care necessarily, and rightfully so, they do not care about a a handful of people in the grand scheme of things. Their purpose is to provide media entertainment in the forms of various shows and movies. And when they don't put content on their platform for a political or cultural reason, they are actively removing potential revenue from their revenue stream. And that's not something that is smart for business. And we need to understand that it is not our duty or job to force a company to accept a cultural norm or a societal norm. And it likewise is not the company's job to bend to cultural norms or societal norms, because these are multinational companies. These are companies that operate in every single country, for the most part, on the planet. If they were to remove all content that could be considered hateful or discriminatory or in any way controversial, Netflix would have almost nothing on it. Because I can take 5 minutes, scroll through one category, and probably point out 16 plus things that I would find offensive. And how do I know that? Because I can just scroll through any of the categories that I don't care for, that I think are stupid and that I hate. Like horror. I don't understand horror. I think horror is a stupid genre, and quite honestly, it glorifies murder in some cases. But I just don't consume that content. It's not that hard. It really, truly isn't. If you don't like the content, don't watch it. If a company has content on their platform that you don't like, don't subscribe to that company. Don't give that company your money. Take your money, take your business elsewhere. Because this goes for all aspects. The only way a company will care is if you speak with your wallets. Because businesses are in the business of making money.
But Netflix, they couldn't care less. They're telling their employees, we're not picking sides. You can go out and fight in the culture war if you want, but if it keeps you from doing your job, go work somewhere else.
Exactly. Your life is yours to live. You can do whatever you want with it. I'm making that very clear. You have the right to do whatever it is that you want with your body and with your life. However, when you go to work, when you go to a job, you are being paid to do a job. You're not being paid for your opinion. You're not being paid for your thoughts. Businesses do not care about that. They couldn't give a shit less what you personally think. If you want to go out and fight in the culture wars, fine. Just don't do it on company time, because that's not what they're paying you for. They're paying you to do your job.
If you don't want to watch Dave Chappelle, watch something else. You don't have to keep me from watching it. It's smart corporate business. We put it out there, and then you can watch whatever. Remember when Major League Baseball wanted to make a political statement last year by moving their All-Star game out of Georgia, all because of a fake news story about a voting bill? Well, they ended up moving to Colorado.
By the way, this is in 2022, so he's talking about last year, 2021.
Voting laws are actually stricter, but that didn't matter. It was just for show. And Atlanta, Georgia lost out on millions in revenue, and Major League Baseball lost out on the ratings, recording their second worst rating number of all time.
This is why businesses shouldn't be caring about politics or culture wars or societal norms. Because when they do, you get this.
When politics gets into America's favorite pastime, it's way past time to turn the channel. Hey, look at Disney. They stuck their neck out for kindergarten teachers to talk to 6-year-olds about sex and transsexuals.
And I want to make this very clear. The human mind is developing well into adulthood. This is a known fact. This is a scientific fact. You cannot disprove this. We have the scientific evidence for it. And if you really want to go and challenge me in the comments, go for it. I'll link you all of the facts. This is why, in order to purchase alcohol, you must be 21. Because of how the human brain develops. These laws that are in place for these kind of things are based off of scientific evidence. Okay? You have no idea what your sexual identity is when you are anything below 16. End of story. If you are below 14, if you're below 13, you're not even a teenager. The last thing you should be caring about is sex. Or what you sexually identify as. What you should be worried about is whether or not that kid over there wants to go play on the playground. Or go play in the sand pit. Or at the park. When you're a teenager, what you should be worried about is getting those good grades on that test. On your homework. And then, once you've ensured all of those things, and you're an adult, then you can start worrying about what your sexual preference is. Because up until that point, it does not fucking matter. The vast majority of people who get into a relationship before they're an adult don't stay in that relationship for more than a year or two. The vast majority of people. There are very few relationships that actually go from like high school into the end of their lives. Or even multiple years. Because we are still growing as human beings during all of that time. Our minds are still developing. Our biases, our preferences, our thoughts, our emotions, everything is still changing. I have been on this earth for more than 20 years. Well over 20 years. And I still have thoughts and opinions that have changed over the past decade. It's very important that we keep these topics being taught. Yes. However, that's what health education is for. And what sex education is for. Things that are done in middle school, or at least they were when I was going to school. Maybe they've moved it to high school, which honestly would be slightly more appropriate. But honestly, I still agree with it being taught in middle school, or at least it's starting in middle school. Because these are things that need to be talked about, but not to a little kid.
Huge mistake. Not only is it inappropriate, but it was a horrific business decision. And now Florida's stripping Disney of all the special treatment they get in Orlando. Netflix isn't making the same mistake. And neither did Spotify. Remember the mob went after Spotify's most popular podcast guy, Joe Rogan? Spotify got a whole lot of heat to fire their biggest revenue driver, but the head of Spotify stood his ground and told his employees he wasn't caving, saying this: "While I strongly condemn what Joe Rogan has said, and I agree with his decision to remove past episodes from our platform, I realize some will want more. And I want to make one point very clear. I don't believe that silencing Joe is the answer."
And here's a really big thing. We often want to just silence anyone who does not agree with us. How is it that the human race has become so innovative, that we have created so many wonders of the world? Things like the Great Pyramids, things like the Eiffel Tower, things like the Statue of Liberty. These massive things. It's because we don't always agree. The Statue of Liberty stands for freedom. It stands for liberty. It stands for peace. The original, which is actually located in France and is much smaller than the one in New York, is this huge symbol. This huge symbol. Silencing the people that we do not agree with is not the answer. End of story. Because silencing those that we don't agree with is how you get communism. If you don't believe me, look at China.
Good leaders don't cave. They pause, they reflect, and then they do what's best after careful consideration. But these corporate leaders are stuck with a younger generation that just feels so entitled to getting their way.
Yes. Yes, they do. Today's generation is especially guilty of this. At my work, there are two individuals who are of today's generation, I'll say. They're young, they're impressionable. One of them, now these two individuals, I'll say this, these two individuals typically worked together. However, my boss has recently forced them to work separately. And here's why. When those two individuals, those two kids, were paired together, they were less productive. One of them literally, and even still does it, literally stands around doing nothing, looking around like a chicken with its head cut off. And both of them, despite the fact that that even after being separated, their productivity is still relatively low, both of them don't understand why they were split up. They're both constantly on their phones when on the job, to the point where it's rare for me to not see them with their phones out. They constantly question everything the bosses say. Everything. Doesn't matter what it is, they just question it. And they don't like it. They don't agree with literally anything that the bosses say. If that's not entitled, I don't know what is.
If one thing goes wrong, or if one thing makes the slightest person a bit uncomfortable, they launch a corporate jihad. Joe Rogan actually put it on his podcast this way this week. Watch.
A friend of mine who's an employer, she employs people, and she was saying that, like, some of her employees are saying, I need a mental health day today. She's like, you're not sick. Get the to work.
Right.
What are you talking? You want to get paid for this mental health day? Show the up. Right. We're not talking about your parents just died in a car accident. No, you have a high level of anxiety today. You know, it's this Roe versus Wade thing. I saw it in the news, and I need a mental health day. Right. You. Show up at work. Show up at work and work harder.
You can get a mental health day if someone dies, not if Hillary loses.
This is a very important thing to keep in mind as well. About 70 years ago, our grandparents and their parents would do things like carry railroad tracks, carry large logs, create these massive things by hand. We have ancestors that built the railways by hand hammering each and every single one of those railway nails into the ground by hand, laying each and every single bit of the track by hand. You think any of them ever even considered taking a mental health day? No. Because they were getting paid to do a job. So they did their job. And once they were done with their job, and they were freed from that responsibility, the rest of that day is their mental health day.
The Chinese, who are trying to take over the world, don't take mental health days because they use the wrong pronoun. This is a competitive world. Americans can't afford to go soft.
No. No, we can't. The thing you have to realize, and the thing that everyone needs to realize, is that the real world, the world out there, outside of your home, outside of your own personal head space, that world doesn't give a fuck about you. It doesn't. It doesn't care if you're black, white, Asian, gay, straight, bi, whatever. Doesn't give a fuck. It doesn't. And it's a really rude reality when you wake up to it. It's hateful, but that's reality. There's always going to be people that you don't like, that you don't agree with. Always. Always and forever. This is a constant. Because we are humans and we are different. And that's what makes us special. Not unique, because we aren't unique. But we are each individually special. Because each one of us is different in our own different, unique ways.
Here's Elon Musk on that.
I think there will be some very strong companies coming out of China. There's just a lot of super talented, hardworking people in China that are strongly believe in manufacturing, and they won't just be burning the midnight oil; they'll be burning the 3 a.m. oil. So they won't even leave the factory type of thing. Whereas in America, people are trying to avoid going to work at all.
We're in an economic war with the Chinese. This lazy corporate culture war is going to make us lose this economic war. So we hope more companies follow in Netflix's footsteps. As Calvin Coolidge once said, the business of America is business. So let's all go to work, stop complaining, and then go home, have a drink, and watch Jesse Waters Primetime.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
So, in short, we need to learn to respect and love each other. We need to understand that a business is not a place for you to try and force your ideas and your culture. When you're at work, do your fucking job. Stop being a little bitch. Stop complaining. And just do your damn job. You're being paid to be there. When you got hired into a spot in a business, you have a list of responsibilities, things you have to do because you're being paid to do it. Things that you know of before you're hired because they want to make sure that you understand what you're supposed to be doing and that you can actually do it and that you're going to do it. Be respectful of each other. Understand that just because you don't necessarily believe in something or agree with someone or agree with something, that doesn't necessarily make them wrong. Nor does it make you wrong, and nor does it invalidate either of you. Everyone deserves to be listened to. Everyone deserves their chance to explain their side of the story. No matter what, whether we like them or not. And we need to understand that businesses are not there for our political beliefs. They aren't there for our cultural beliefs, and they aren't there for our societal beliefs. They are there to make money. They are a business. Leave it that way. As always, thank you for coming to my corner. I have been your DM, and I'll see you next time.